All right. Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening.
So I call this meeting to order.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Thomas, roll call, please.
Dr. Bellamy,
Here.
Ms. Hill,
Here.
Ms. Walker,
Present.
Mr. Signer, Ms. Galvin.
Here.
Are there any announcements?
Do you want to start with this?
I have a few.
The welcoming and the thanking. So first of all, I think we want to welcome Dr. Richardson to the dais this evening. It's really a pleasure to have you. Looking forward to this next chapter, but we would be remiss without taking some time to thank our city staff and all the ways that many stepped up during this transition. This evening, we especially have a few folks that we'd like to thank. Our communications director, Brian Wheeler, who wore countless hats during this transition, most notably that of the interim clerk, as well as covering the scope of our assistant clerk while we recruited and onboarded Keena Thomas and Cecilia Robinson. Your commitment, Mr. Wheeler, to council during this transition, as well as the continued input on ways that we can further improve our processes, is so appreciative. Thank you, Brian. And we have a little something for everyone when we're done. Assistant City Manager Leslie Beauregard, who provided support to Mr. Murphy throughout this transition while also leading us through one of the more challenging budget cycles that we have. Leslie, really appreciate all the ways that you've been here to support this team this year. Our Director of Human Services is Interim Director of Transit, Kaki Dimmick, who joined the City Manager's office as Interim Assistant City Manager and also wore and continues to wear multiple hats along the way while also supporting Council's evaluation of the ABRT process. Thank you for that, Kaki. And certainly last but not least, Assistant City Manager Mike Murphy, who served the challenging role of Interim City Manager for 9.5 months. Thank you for your leadership and commitment to this organization. We've appreciated your efforts to work with us in partnership and look forward to continued collaboration with you, Dr. Richardson, and the staff team as we begin this new chapter. So thank you all, and we have a little something for each of you.
Let's give them all a round of applause, please. I think we all should probably go.
I think we all need to go
Show
down
them some
there.
love.
I can take a picture of you. That'll help you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Mayor.
And I would just like to, thank everyone who participated in the community panels, the staff panels, to select our new city manager. And like Councilor Hill said, we're looking forward to this, to the future and what, and all that it brings. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
All right,
All right.
so another announcement.
Yep. All right. Good evening, everyone. I have a few other announcements. In addition to that, I'd like to echo the statements of Mayor Walker as well as Vice Mayor Hill. Sincere welcome to Mr. Richardson, who I was at the Virginia First Cities convening this week, and you are highly respected by city managers across the Commonwealth. Many of them sent their regards, and they were very clear that we got a good one. So we're really looking forward to the work that you're going to do. And however we can be of assistance to you, we're here for you.
Appreciate that.
No problem at all, sir. So I have a couple of announcements. Bear with me. I try to do them in chronological order. It seems like y'all just load me up with all the announcements. I don't really know how I feel about that. Oh, okay. All right. So the first one
Counselor Bellamy, could we just, because I don't want, you,
Are we gonna do
we
them
have a
first?
concert that's going to start outside
Oh, we got a concert.
in just a second. Miss Laura Thomas and Masamba Job, could you come up, please?
Oh, y'all gonna perform for us? Oh, okay. Oh boy. All right, we got the grandma grannies here, so you know I like performances.
Yes.
Green grannies, my bad. We like a show.
Yeah, if you want to, you can go ahead.
You got to go on
You
the
got to
microphone.
come
though.
to the microphone. Yeah.
So we have a virtuoso in our midst. This is Masamba Jobe. Anybody see Black Panther? This is his music. He's from Senegal, and he is visiting Charlottesville High School this week. He's working with our students. He's visiting ELL classes, and we're doing an open drum party at the pavilion from 6:30 to 8. It's already started, so we're telling the community about it. So maybe you will come after the meeting, and so Masamba is giving generously of his time to work with our students of Charlottesville High School. And so how about a hand for Masamba Jobe?
Hey, 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 hey. Hey. Okay. Hey. Hard. Man, you might be T'Challa himself. You cold with that little thing. Take me with you. Take me with you.
Thank you.
The meeting's too long.
Okay.
How am I supposed to do announcements after that? And before Dr. Atkins walks out, kudos to her, our superintendent. Hey, Dr. Atkins, thank you for stopping by. All right, so announcements, we have a few of them. That was great. The first one, so the preservers of the Daughters of the Zion Cemetery cordially invite everyone from the city to attend Decoration Day. This is at 2 o'clock on Sunday, May 26, 2019, at the Daughters of Zion Cemetery, which is on the corner of Oak and South First Streets. Following the ceremony, there will be a gathering for light refreshments at Barrett Early Learning Center, which is at 410 Ridge Street. So again, any and everyone is invited to come out to Decoration Day. That's Sunday at 2 p.m. at the Daughters of Zion Cemetery. So make sure you all come out. Shout out to everybody who put that together. Also, we have another announcement from Mrs. Maxine Holland. Oh, sorry, backtrack. On Wednesday, there's going to be a social bike ride. Shout out to my man Peter Krebs. We're going to be riding bicycles. I'm going to be riding bicycles with everybody from the bike clubs from all across Friendship Court, and we're going to do a couple of miles throughout the city, correct? I think there's going to be some light refreshments or something, like some water at least for everybody. I know it'll be a little warm. So come on out. That's Wednesday at 5 o'clock. If you need more information, you can see Mr. Peter Krebs for that. It's a bike ride through the city. Following that, the 19th annual Juneteenth celebration will take place on Friday, June 14th and Saturday, June 15th. Juneteenth, for those who don't know, dates back to 1865, and Juneteenth, which is a blend of June and 19th, is the oldest known celebration of the ending of slavery in the United States. It grew out of a desire to remember the struggle that Black people waged to free themselves and save the Union. All of this will take place at the Jefferson School African American Heritage Center. It's going to start, again, Friday, June 14th at 6 o'clock. It goes from 6 to 8. And then there's a party on the lawn, on Saturday, June 15th. That starts at 5 o'clock. Mayor Walker will be there. I think she'll be saying a few words. And I'll be there as well. Yeah, you? Yes? Oh. All right. So there is, make sure you come on out to Juneteenth. As Ms. Parker hands me a lovely calendar for Unity Days, there are a few other items. All right. So we got a couple things popping here in the city. I'm not going to read them all, but make sure you all, again, come out to, on Monday, the 27th, there's an Irish and Enslaved People's History and the Railroad in Charlottesville. Again, this is for the Charlottesville Unity Days that we have going on. Thank you, Vice Mayor Hill. Forgive me, let me backtrack. Tomorrow, Tuesday, the 21st, there's going to be a presentation on racial and ethnic history of Charlottesville. That will be presented by Ms. Charlene Green of the Human Rights Commission. That's at the African American Heritage Center at 6 p.m. Again, that's Tuesday the 21st at 6 o'clock tomorrow. On Thursday the 23rd, Performing History, Sally Hemings in the Artist's Imagination. That's going to take place at the Common House at 5 p.m. On Friday the 24th, there's going to be a Monacan History celebration. That's going to be put on by Jeff Hantman. That's at City Space at 7. And then there are also events on Saturday the 25th, Monticello to Main Street, as well as Sally on West Main Street. Sally on West Main. For anyone who would like more information about the Unity Days and the committee who's putting everything together, please look online at www.charlottesville.org/Unity Days, all one word. So again, www.charlottesville.org Unity Days. You can also use the hashtag Unity Days Seville and tag us in your photos and events. Ms. Parker, you using hashtags? Oh, it's lit. All right, cool. Last but not least, we got another announcement. There's a few of you who have been running with us as we've been running these streets and jogging the city. So every Monday, Tuesday at 6 o'clock, Wednesday at 6:30 a.m., and then Friday and Sunday at 6:30 a.m., we are jogging through the community. So the group has grown to about 20 people. We're hoping to get 20 people on Wednesday. It's got to about 10 to 12 people on a routine basis. So we jog through all of the traditional African-American neighborhoods and historical sites. It's open to everyone. And the culminating event is going to be the Run These Streets 4-miler. That's going to take place on Saturday, June 29th at 8 a.m., kicking off at the Jefferson School. So it's open to any and everyone. We run through the communities. It's a good way to get your morning started, get the blood flowing, meet some new people. We got a couple people who've promised me that they're going to run with us this week. Mayor Walker says she's going to run before she kicks off her 4-miler. Ms. Galvin, Ms. Vice Mayor Hill, and Dr. Richardson. We meant to tell you, before you sign your contract, you had to come and run these 4 miles, but you're going to get there. So we hope that you all will join us. That's all that I have, Mayor Walker, and we're looking forward to a great, efficient meeting tonight.
Thank you,
Because I got a performance to go see.
Councilor Bellamy.
All right.
I have an announcement from the voter registration office. Absentee voting for the June 11th Democratic primary is now underway. Virginia does not have party registration. Any qualified voter may vote in a primary. This primary will decide the Democratic Party's nominee for City Council, which are 3 seats in the House of Delegates for the November election. In Virginia, voters must have a reason for voting absentee, for example, if they will be away on election day or have a disability or illness. Qualified city registered voters may vote absentee in the city voter registration office during office hours of 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., Monday through Friday, and on Saturday, June 8th. The office is in the City Hall Annex next to the pavilion. Curbside service is available for absentee voters who are disabled or who are 65 or older and have a qualifying absentee voting reason. You must show a photo ID when voting in person, just as on Election Day. Voters who do not have an acceptable ID may apply for a free photo ID for voting during office hours in the registrar's office. Voters who need a mailed absentee ballot are encouraged to apply now to allow time to receive, vote, and return the ballot by Election Day. If you apply online at vote.virginia.gov or call the registration office at 434-970-3250 for an application or with any questions.
I have a proclamation. So to have a run on anything, you have to have good infrastructure. So I am very happy to say that this is National Public Works Week. So with that, whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of Charlottesville, and whereas these infrastructure, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our transportation, water supply, water treatment and solid waste systems, public building, and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas the city is thankful to all of those public works professionals, and whereas it is in the public interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children in Charlottesville to gain knowledge of and to maintain a progressive interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in our community, and whereas the year 2019 marks the 59th annual National Public Works Week sponsored by the American Public Works Association, now therefore we, the City Council of Charlottesville, Virginia, do hereby recognize the week of May 19 to 25, 2019 as National Public Works Week in the City of Charlottesville and call this observance to the attention of all of our citizens. Signed and sealed this 20th day of May by Mayor Walker. And I guess Mark Zevikar, who is the Facilities Maintenance Division Manager, is going to come to introduce Jermaine Rush, the custodial leader.
All right.
If I may, I would like to introduce Jermaine Rush, who will accept this important proclamation on behalf of Public Works. Jermaine has been an influencer with the Facility Maintenance Division since September 10 of 2012, and we are very, very fortunate to have him.
Outstanding.
Great. Thank you.
Just want to acknowledge Mr. Paul Oberdorfer, who is the Director of Public Works.
All right, Paul.
That's a mouthful.
Okay, any other? All right, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Is there anyone here who would like to speak on any matters that are on the consent agenda?
No, I was going to make a motion for us to defer items C and D till our next meeting.
Okay. Ms. Fuller?
Is there a second?
May I ask why?
Mr. Signer is not here.
Oh, second.
Okay,
We need to vote
To defer.
to defer.
please vote. All right, thank you. All right, Ms. Thomas, could you read the consent agenda, please?
Excuse me, my voice is getting hoarse. A, minutes, April 17, 2019, special meeting. B, appropriation. Appropriation of funding for CPA TV for the Ryle Thomas Show, LLC, $4,247.50, first of two readings. C, appropriation 2019 to 2020 Community Development Block Grant Funding, $395,052.82, deferred to the next meeting. Also, item D is deferred to the next meeting. Item E, appropriation amendment to Community Development Block Grant Account, reprogramming of funds for FY 2019 to 2020, $1,900.82, second of two readings. F, appropriation, Local Emergency Management Performance Grant, LEMPG, $7,500, second of two readings. G, appropriation, funding requirements for SAP integration for the FASTER Fleet Management Software, $48,000, second of two readings. H, appropriation, Virginia Housing Solutions Program Grant Award, $16,500, first of two readings. I, ordinance, amend conditions for closing a portion of the Coleman Street right-of-way, unaccepted right-of-way, second of two readings.
I move that we adopt the consent agenda, obviously with C and D deferred.
Second.
All right. Is there anyone here who would like to speak on the consent agenda after hearing it read? No? All right, please vote. All right, so that carries 4-0.
Do you want me to do these now or after?
Yeah, you go ahead.
Okay. This evening, council is appointing the following individuals to our boards and commissions. The Charlottesville Redevelopment and Housing Authority, Laura Goldblatt, Michael Osteen. The Citizen Transportation Advisory Committee, T. Donna Chen. The Community Development Block Grant Task Force, Nancy Carpenter and Howard Evergreen. We did want to note for everyone out there that we do still have 5 vacancies representing the Belmont, Ridge, Fifeville, and 10th and Page neighborhoods. So you can apply for those positions if you would fall in those neighborhoods. The Community Policy and Management Team, Michael Costanzo. The Historic Resources Committee, John C. Barron Jr., William L. Clay III, and Martin O'Brien and Ellen Wagner. The Jefferson Area Board for the Aging, J. Brian Jackson. The Minority Business Program Task Force, Anthony Derek LeCount. The Monticello Area Community Action Agency Board, John C. Gallant. Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, Bridget Moss. The Place Design Task Force, Susan Perkins, Michael Stoneking, Andrea Rudy Trimble, Frederick Wolf, and Emily Wright. The Region 10 Community Services Board, Linda Hansen and John Kronstein. The Retirement Commission, Al Elias. The Sister City Commission, Joan Clark, Amanda Folsom, Kate Kogi, Dave Norris, and James Potter. The Towing Advisory Board, Edward Wayne Haslett. The Tree Commission, Brian Paul Menard. And the Vendor Appeals Board, Al Elias. So I guess that's a motion.
Mayor Walker, I would like to pull the appointment to the
Community Policy Management.
Community Policy Management Board because Michael Costanzo is my husband, and I was not involved with this election. It'd be a conflict of interest. So if we could pull that, and I would not vote, and I would abstain from that vote.
Yes, if you'd like to just not have that, if you'd like to have Mr. Costanzo removed for a separate vote, and then you would abstain on that vote, but you would vote on the rest of the boards and commissions appointments.
Yes.
Thank you.
So I move that we adopt these appointments
Except
with
for
except
Mr.
for
Costanzo.
that appointment. Okay.
Yes.
That's my motion then.
Second.
So before we vote, may I have a quick discussion? Just something I'd like to say very briefly. For the Housing Authority specifically, we had an open application, and the information had been posted on the city's website. I just want to say that maybe we as a city need to do a better job of getting the information out that these applications or that these board positions are up, or we have to do a better job of encouraging folks to actually apply. We only had 2 applicants for the Housing Authority Board, in which basically makes the decisions for what's going on for one of the hottest topics in our community. And the fact that we only had 2 applicants, to me personally, was rather disappointing. We've seen this also similarly when we had issues come up with the Civilian Review Board, in which we initially started with over 20 applications, and that number dwindled down to, I think, 12 or 13, and then it went down some more. I think that we as a community, we do a great deal of talking about we want to be involved, we want to be engaged, we want to be in the decision-making process, but when the opportunity comes forth for you to actually join the boards and commissions, we need you to apply, be engaged, and then possibly serve. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
But
So we're ready to vote.
All right. Please vote.
I'm ready.
All right, that carries 4-0.
And now I move that we appoint Michael Costanzo to the Community Policy and Management Team. Give me a second.
I'll second.
And I will abstain, but I hit the red button, right?
No, you just.
I don't
you
do
don't
anything.
any-
Okay, great.
Yeah, okay, please vote. All right, that carries 3-0. All right, thank you.
Oh, you know what? I didn't read out the Youth Council people. They're on the 3rd page. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I move we appoint Hans Bay, Olivia Bowers, Caroline Jaffe, and Sabrina Hendricks to the Youth Council. So sorry, people.
Second.
All right, please vote.
There's 3 pages to that.
All right, that carries 4-0. All right. All right, now, we need to do again? Okay. We have to vote again. All right, please vote. Nothing's happened.
It wasn't clear. There we go.
Okay. All right, thank you.
We've overworked it.
All right, now we have our city manager's response to community matters from the May 6th council meeting.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Member City Council. I also just want to say, before I do get started, say thank you to the public for all your time and due diligence throughout the interview process, and thank you for your kind words of encouragement, as well as welcoming me to the city of Charlottesville once again. So thank you. Moving on to the city manager's response to community matters. One of the ones that many of you got emails and phone calls, and as I want to tell the folks from the Downtown Business Association that I tried to call everyone back as I could, as well as email many of you back who emailed me pertaining to the route change along West South Street and down 2nd Street Southwest. My understanding, based upon the history of this, is that there's already been a 14-day notice for a parking change, as well as a discussion pertaining to it being a pilot project. Now, just want to be clear with the council, is this something you want to move forward with and move it to a future agenda in terms of having further discussion? Or would you like to proceed with the pilot project along that area for a period of 6 months?
Yeah, I would like to proceed with the pilot.
I guess my concern is that there hasn't been an opportunity to kind of formally for people to kind of weigh in on this issue. If it's going to be a 6-month period, you know, that is a pretty substantial period of time, and just based on the sheer volume of folks, both residents and obviously business owners that have weighed in, I'm just wondering what other options we have just to have a more robust discussion about what this looks like and hearing from the public.
And I don't think we necessarily need a more robust discussion if we're not going to do the pilot, because the people who've been calling and writing in are opposed to the pilot. So it's just, we need to make a decision.
I stated my concerns a couple meetings ago, and I still have those concerns, but from the perspective and standpoint in which we've already discussed it and said and communicated to the community that we would move forward with the 6-month pilot, I'm willing to proceed forth in that manner.
Mayor Walker, I just have a comment to make that, I mean, the point of as I understand it, the point of a pilot is to do the investigation, to research it, to see what the implications are for both ridership as well as impacts on parking. And we can't find out that kind of information exactly until we do it, because ridership and parking, in my mind, are both public goods. So we've got to figure out whether or not this is really going to be something that benefits our riders. And I can't see how that can be done without a pilot. The pilot is going to be then identified as an end time in 6 months. And then at that time, if we see that it really didn't have any positive impact on ridership, then it also, we figured out a way to accommodate parking, because that was one thing I want to look into. Would there be a way to put additional parking spaces on Water Street, for example, in the areas? Is some way to put more spaces in that area to accommodate what was taken off of South Street? So to me, those are the questions that need to be answered in a pilot. So I'm not sure if I'm missing something about the whole purpose of a pilot, is to test out something. And if there is harm done, we won't do it. But we don't know yet until we try it out.
Okay. So we're moving forward.
So I would say we move forward on it.
All right. Thank you, Council. Moving on, another item that I have is comments from from Ms. Hudson about Rose Hill parking. We did go ahead and make a change from our last time in terms of parking. Our traffic engineer today actually went out there and put up a 14-day notice for a parking change over there in that area because impacting neighborhood business. So we did do that today. Moving on with another comment from Mr. Foley. And I want to make sure that I pronounce his name right, Mr. Foley. All right, got it. One of your questions was pertaining to can people do community service to work off fines? And yes, that currently is the case. I'm sorry. Well, okay. All right. All right, well, I'm just going to relay the information so you can get back to Mr. Kuntz, right? All right. Just making sure, but one of the things is that, the judge currently, he does that on a case-by-case basis. What he ends up doing is making sure that someone can verify the performance of those individuals and that they can certify the work that they've done. And he approves that plan, such as a probation officer or someone like that can verify it. And then secondly, the incarcerated folks, they're able to do work, but that's verified by our circuit court judge, who basically takes it by hour, and their fines are reduced based upon a minimum wage rate. So that is being done. One other item that I do have is to talk about the climate vulnerability assessment. Currently, staff is pursuing a climate hazard vulnerability assessment. This has been supported by UVA, the county, as well as the city. The core methodology for this effort is to identify, consider, and estimate. When I talk about identify, I talk about identifying climate hazard specifics to our particular area, as well as considering how they are projected to change. And the last piece of that is estimating the level of impact that those changes will have on our core community. These results will feed into our climate adaptation planning. And the last thing I want to mention to the council, based upon Bike Month, I know that you do have a report within your packet. We will come back at a later date to basically identify our achievements with that. And that's all I have at this time to report.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
And now we'll move on to our community matters section. The first speaker is Walt Heineke.
Hi, Walt Heineke, 1521 Amherst Street. Mayor Walker, members of council, Dr. Richardson, welcome. Nice to see you here. First of all, that was a great opening for council. That was so upbeat. We ought to do that every time.
You can do the thing next
Can we
time.
pull that off again?
All right.
Because that was very nice. I wanted to talk about something that's on the agenda today. it's the ABRT process. And before I say anything, first of all, I'll repeat what I said at the work session, which are there are a lot of very fine nonprofits in this town doing really hard work. And I'm not talking tonight about any one specific nonprofit. I'm talking about the system in general. So keep that in mind when I make my comments. I think if we get this right, it's going to be a major cap in the major feather in the city's equity cap at the end of the year. As I've mentioned before, on August 11th and 12th, when the reporters come back, they're going to ask, what have we accomplished since 2017 in terms of an equity agenda? And I think this potential for reforming the ABRT toward equity is one of those opportunities for the city to grab and to actually make good on those promises. I think if we get this right, and I don't think we've got it right in the packet. The proposal tonight, I think, needs some work. I do think we could use UVA's priority groups that are already established as ways to organize our priorities for ABRT reform. They have jobs and wages, affordable housing, public health, and education as categories that they prioritize. We could do the same thing and then organize our nonprofits under those headings and get to work on those particular nonprofits and make a dent in creating those. We could also create work groups around those priorities made up of a majority of low-income clients to get their perspectives heard when we do the reform process for ABRT. I think most importantly, it's how it's staffed. I think you need to hire an independent facilitator with 2 skills: critical race or multicultural skills, and an evaluator who can guide what success looks like. In other words, somebody who's facile at creating goals and indicators and report cards, and who has measurement skills. So I'm not arguing that we use UVA. You might use some professors from UVA, but I don't think we should use them as an institution to do this. I think we need to focus on the experience and the solutions of our most vulnerable clients in the city. I think independent staffing is critical for this review and reform. The ABRT is part of a culture of Charlottesville, and regular insiders and staff can't see what they can't see. So I also think that Dr. Bellamy at the last work session talked about a group called the Nonprofit Leaders of Color, and I think they could be useful in terms of creating an advisory board and help with the work groups. At the end of the day, I think we need to shift the power to the people who are most impacted by the work that nonprofits do.
Thank you. Peter Krebs. Good evening.
Good evening, Council. Welcome, Dr. Richardson. We're so happy to have you on board. Tonight you'll receive a written, I'm Peter Krebs from Piedmont Environmental Council, by the way, and city resident. Tonight you will receive a written update from city staff about progress on bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure. Every year we see more people out on bikes and healthy walks and runs, including all of you, in fact, which is awesome. And there have been some notable successes during the past year, including, for example, the pedestrian bridge in McIntyre Park. Staff should be commended for their hard work, and yet I think we can all agree that a lot of work still needs to be done as well. The report mentions one item that merits a conversation of its own. The recently completed Jefferson Area Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan lays out a comprehensive network of bike lanes, sidewalks, and shared use paths throughout the combined Charlottesville and Albemarle area, the urban area of Albemarle specifically. It envisions a connected community and emphasizes opportunities for shared wins for the city and the county. Imagine going for a run on the Saunders-Monticello Trail without getting in your car, commuting across the Rivanna River on a pedestrian bridge, taking your family for a safe and enjoyable bike ride that goes on for miles and miles instead of mile. And creating linear parks in spots that are currently forgotten and unloved spaces. In addition to providing improved quality of life for today's residents, these connections also encourage investment, lower household travel costs, promote health and equity, and lower our climate footprint, and so much more. For the past 2 years, thanks to the Charlottesville Area Community Foundation, we've had many conversations with stakeholders from across the community. We've worked closely with health professionals, university, activists of all stripes, local, state officials, and residents throughout both the city and the county. We have found nearly unanimous support for this vision of active transportation and recreation that is truly available for all. We look forward to continuing to lead these conversations. Both the city and the county have done great work, made significant commitments, and you must move forward together. The Jefferson Area Plan is a pathway to doing so, and City Council really should hear a presentation from the Planning District about this at some later date, perhaps this summer. In the meantime, you can learn more about the plan and sign our community letter of support by visiting pecva.org/Seville Greenways. Thank you.
Thank you.
Peter, really quick, as we talk about when that may happen, if you think there's like a natural point in time where there may be I think this kind of got prompted because it's Bike Month and we're recognizing that. But
Yeah.
so we're just kind of curious because we were talking about this before the meeting, just trying to understand, is there a natural time where it would be good for the groups to come back?
Yeah, so I think there's sort of two natural factors at play. Number one is that the plan is recently completed, so it's timely. We don't want to wait forever. One of my deals working with the community is I don't speak for other stakeholders. I only know what I've heard. And I believe that the county is hearing the issue this summer.
Okay.
So I think it would make sense for you guys and the Board of Supervisors to coordinate calendars in some way if you can.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chris Mayer. Good evening.
Good morning, Mayor, good morning. Good evening, Mayor, councilors. Dr. Richardson, welcome. I'm a resident of Fry Springs neighborhood, and I'm also a member of the HAC. So I've been thinking a lot about affordable housing recently, and an interesting experience this last weekend with renting my house on Airbnb for a ridiculous amount of money to somebody from California. I went on to go look at the website, though, for the city on how I could, again, pay my tax or register my house in order to, again, make sure the city was getting what it needs, and found that it's a very kind of bureaucratic, you have to multiple forms, I would have to start remitting a tax payment every month, even though, let's say, I just rented my house for once or twice during the year. I then kind of was like, okay, well, this is interesting, and also I don't think a lot of my neighbors who are doing this are registered. And so all of a sudden we're missing a lot of potential money. In addition to having potential rental housing stock being used just for Airbnb 100% of the time instead of residents in Charlottesville using it. I did note, and kind of going around and exploring then, I was like, okay, why didn't just Airbnb take the 7% lodging tax directly out of the money that's being remitted to me? They don't. Which is kind of surprising again, but in the cities of Blacksburg and Alexandria, they do. So this can be done. I also noted then, when I was digging around a little bit, that Airbnb claimed that the city of Charlottesville during the UVA football season, or not the city, but Charlottesville in general, did $1.1 million of rentals for like 5 months. Now that, of course, is maybe a bunch of bachelorette parties and other things going on, other wine tastings, but if that's 7% lodging, that's another $70K that can be used to, again, potentially support rental vouchers, et cetera. So I'm sending my check in to the treasurer, remitting my money that I owe. But I do suggest, I know we were, of course, only a couple months ago having a very interesting discussion on raising taxes and finding tax money to, again, support affordable housing. I know the affordable housing rental voucher program is funded, but we could always use some more money to, again, because we're having problems trying to incentivize landlords to take the vouchers. Economics of that and increasing that, could help on that. So I would suggest, of course, the staff figure out how to Airbnb to remit the money directly, and take it directly out of the the money that's being, again, charged. Additionally, I would hope that that money can be specifically allocated to, again, rentals, supporting the rental program. And finally, I would suggest the staff look at how do you increase the rate, specifically these short-term rentals, from, like, say, 7% to 15 or 20%, because I don't think we necessarily want, again, our housing stock used for Airbnb rentals full-time. Thanks.
Mayor Walker, may I say something?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very, very
Because we've
much.
been having these conversations and trying to get, so this is a very different perspective to talk to staff about, so appreciate.
I would just like to ask Mr. Our City Manager Richardson that we look into the process of paying taxes and whether or not Blacksburg and I guess it was Alexandria are better models. I also think that the differential in rate is an interesting idea because the other thing that was discovered in the April 2018 housing needs assessment was that about 250 housing units were lost to short-term rentals, which in a city like ours, which is really desperately in need of affordable housing, that was a shock to read that. So if we can both get revenue from it more directly and not encourage people to go, under the table with it, and then secondly, make it a little bit harder to do it, we might be able to get a kind of a nice sweet spot. One can only hope. Thank you. That's all I need to say.
And one aspect to the speaker's point is Blacksburg did enter into, there is an ability for localities to enter into agreements for Airbnb to directly collect the tax per their site and remit it back to the locality. However, I do know the Commissioner of Revenue in the city has examined this question before, and he may offer some insights as well as to why the pros and cons of both direct collection from the Airbnb website versus the city directly collecting.
Do they charge a fee to do?
I don't know their agreement,
Okay.
but that might be part of the calculus as to.
Okay. All right, thank you. Ray Masters. Ray Masters. All right, Mary Carey. That's the drum man? Like, what is that?
Where is it? Was that for me to drum?
They're outside partying.
Okay. Welcome,
Thank you.
Dr. Richardson. Mary Carey, city resident. About the pilot, thank you, Ms. Gavin. Mayor Walker, Mr. Bowley. Because I'm trying to figure out what's going on here. If you can't approve a pilot for 2 parking spaces, free parking spaces on a one-way street, and you got 2 parking lots down there and a parking garage, and somebody that's building something on Water Street that got special permits to change parking anytime they get good and ready, what's up with that? Okay, last night, I called Charlottesville Police non-emergency number because, like I said, the person that's building over there on Water Street, he seems to want to build anytime he get ready. He had that thing clanging and banging at 1:30 this morning. Started off at 5:30 Sunday morning. So finally, when I got to the dispatcher, Chief Brackney, the officer went over and came and called me and told me that the man showed him a permit, a special permit that he can build, he can do construction, especially on Sundays, anytime. So I don't know who getting money where, under the table, around the barn, wherever, But y'all better give it back, because this man is not going to stay over there at Midway Man and Carl like this anytime he get ready. This is the 5th time since the first of the year he's done this on a weekend. And he does it anytime he get ready. On Sunday mornings, he comes in there like 5:30 in the morning and clang and bang all day long. Every day he start construction at 5:30 and 6 o'clock in the morning. That's on weekdays. I don't know if he's trying to make up time or what. But as far as the trolley coming downtown, I've talked to several university students that the trolley do go down Altamont Road that don't even come downtown, would appreciate riding it. And to the merchants downtown in Charlottesville, y'all need all the business y'all can get. Thank you.
Thank you. And I also had another complaint from Mr. Grimes, who lives in Midway Manor, too, about the construction this morning. Harold Foley.
Hey, before I start, I want to say that the People's Coalition is not here to destroy anybody or make anybody look bad, right? We're here to destroy systems and bring them back together, right? For so long, African American men has been targeted in Charlottesville. With that said, I'm going to cede my time to Ms. Richardson. Johnson.
Dorinda Johnson, Charlottesville resident.
How you doing?
I'm fine. I was at a neighborhood association meeting, Fifeville, because I live over there. And there was an officer there. So I have had an interaction with this officer before, so I asked him a few questions regarding his interaction with African American males, and it isn't good. So I asked him, why is it whenever his name comes up in a conversation involving African American males, it's negative? And it always is negative. And he became very defensive, which I expected of him to do. So I'm going to let these ladies who were present to say something about that. It's to my understanding that there was a letter written, and I don't know if the chief got it or not, but there was a letter written complaining about this officer's behavior that evening, which was good because, in my opinion, if that had been a group of black people talking about him and he had been there and we had complained about it, nothing would have happened. But because it was white people that wrote the complaint and sent it in, it was addressed. So we're going to address it tonight, I hope. And if not, I'm hoping that someone will be getting in touch with me to address it again. Ladies, thank you.
Olivia Patton, city resident. I was also at the neighborhood association meeting that night. I hate that I have to be up here to validate a black woman's word because it would not be taken as seriously as mine. I was there. I got there that night. The officer came in. It was one of the first warm days of the spring. We're at Tonsar Park. It's filled with people. Everyone's having a good time. People are playing music, basketball, out on the benches. As soon as he gets out of his car, palpable tension falls upon the park. Everybody gets back in their car and leaves. People get off the playground, people grab their children, and I mean, it was visible. I just was there. We immediately remarked on it. We're like, who is that guy who just got out of that? And then we realized which officer it was. We get in there. Another officer was supposed to be speaking. I apologize, I'm going over. He's confronted about his interactions with black men and black people in general, and is nothing aggressive about it, just objective facts and storytelling, and he immediately gets very defensive. He starts gritting his teeth, saying he's not a racist, yelling, clenching his fist, banging on his thing, rolling out his eyes. It's just an insane interaction, and everybody in the room is kind of like, what's going on? Why are you reacting this way? It finally gets stopped with this back and forth of him yelling, saying, I'm not a racist, I didn't do this, completely invalidating her stories that he says nobody else feels this way, even though I just watched a whole park remove itself as a reaction to his presence, only because a white man spoke up and said, hey, you've been acting like a jerk. You could have stopped this whole interaction 20 minutes ago, but instead you've been defensive. And finally he sat down and moved on. It was just really inappropriate and completely invalidated her experience and made me feel unsafe, but made me upset that my neighbors feel even more unsafe than I did.
Ms. Johnson, was your contact information sent, because you asked for someone to contact you, was your contact information sent in with the complaint?
Well, no, not to, well, someone did contact me by email, but
Okay.
yeah, they have my information.
Okay.
Everyone did.
All right, thank you.
Wait, so Ms. Johnson, I'm not clear. So someone contacted you via email about the complaint?
To let me know that the complaint had been sent in.
Okay, so you want another follow-up?
Don't you think I need a follow-up?
I'm not saying you don't. I'm trying to understand. But you
I don't
said,
think you need to ask me that, Wes. It's very clear that this should be looked into.
So
You
that's
know,
what okay.
that's what I'm saying. I'm just asking for somebody to look into it, please.
So there was a complaint filed, so it, okay.
Yes, there
Okay.
was.
All right. All right, thank you. Paul Long. Good evening.
Good evening. Mayor Walker, members of the City Council. My name is Paul Long. I live at 100 Ridge Street here in the city. Dr. Richardson, I want to welcome you to the city. Thank you. As a new manager. I hear you have an excellent reputation. And I want to talk about the last City Council meeting that was called to order at 6:30 in the evening and wasn't adjourned until 10 minutes after 1. You know, and I realized that there was a lot of city business to conduct. But I think that by and large, and I realize that not every meeting lasts that long, but a lot of meetings sometimes last 4.5 hours. And I think an effort should be made to conduct the meetings within a 2.5 to 3 hour time frame. You know, and I don't want to necessarily judge Charlottesville by other big cities, but when I was living in Philadelphia, and I've been living in Charlottesville for 21 years, as Philadelphia City Council has 17 members, and I've never attended a Philadelphia City Council meeting that lasted over 2.5 hours. You know, there's got to be a way to condense the meeting to a more reasonable time frame, and I thank you very much for your time.
All right, thank you. Chantel Bingham. Good evening.
Chantel Bingham, 1648 Brandywine Drive. So I stand before you today to give a brief update on the Food Equity Initiative and the progress that we made so far in cultivating food equity in our city. For some time now, a group of 30 nonprofit organizations known as the Charlottesville Food Justice Network have worked to envision a food system that truly works for all. We realize that our food system does not serve everyone equally, and that hunger, food insecurity, and poverty are entrenched problems for our city and also historical ones. The Food Equity Initiative is about grounding ourselves in the reality of race and health inequities in Charlottesville. It challenges us to consider the root causes of unequal access to healthy, nutritious food based on an individual's demographic background. It demands us to heal the disparities we see across race, class, age, and gender as it relates to food access in Charlottesville. Since the passing of the Food Equity Initiative on October 15, 2018, more than 40 nonprofit organizations, 10 city departments, 5 healthcare institutions, and 4 foundations have actively collaborated to better understand the root causes of food insecurity in Charlottesville. This high engagement process, thanks to the Charlottesville City Council for passing that, has encouraged many partners to not only consider short-term interventions which meet the needs of our residents today, to begin visioning long-term solutions to build self-sufficient families of tomorrow. The 6-month narrative shift, which you guys will find a handout that we left with you at the beginning of the meeting, has already produced short-term city-wide benefits for planning. I just want to list those out for you today. Number 1, it started to cultivate trusting relationships between city departments and nonprofits to tackle systemic issues of racial inequity in our food system together. 2, directly increased alignment between city staff and community needs through a food equity lens. 3, city department leadership has demonstrated an increased awareness of the role their sector plays in cultivating food equity. 4, it's also elevated cross-sector understanding and community planning around affordable housing, climate change, and food security as an integral piece to building self-sufficient citizens at all ages. So overall, the city's Food Equity Initiative has sparked a new era of community engagement, collaboration, and collective problem solving. So I really want to thank you all for passing that. It's enabled our community to leverage the expertise we have to collectively solve the problems that lie ahead. As a community, we've already highlighted 5 areas of advocacy that we really need to strengthen. And those are healthy school meals with the school district in which 55% of the student body qualifies for free and reduced lunch and breakfast, 85% of the at 3 different schools. It's imperative that each learner receives a nourishing plate. It shouldn't be on that mom or a father to provide that meal to that student. Second is strengthening transportation systems. Our city, where we have a city where grocery stores are now cast to the outskirts of our urban ring, families are finding it more and more hard to make it out there to Food Lion or wherever it is. So it's important that we start to develop a strong transportation system, affordable housing. As we consider developing affordable housing that meets the middle demand as well as demand for those living at 30% AMI, we need to start thinking about food access as well. It's great that people will have a shelter over their head, but if they don't have a place to eat, then what is there to live in the city for? 4 is urban agriculture, and 5 is neighborhood access and markets. So I know I've gone over my time. I want to leave you with that and just remind you all that the City of Charlottesville and the Charlottesville Food Justice Network has been selected for a national award. In 2014, the Mob administration started Local Food, Local Places, and it's geared to do just what we're trying to do with the Food Equity Initiative. So I really want to push you guys to save the dates of July 16th and 17th. We'll have a herd of federal employees around Charlottesville visiting different housing sites, different food access points as well, and collaborating with 30 organizations, hopefully 30 residents to really envision what that plan would look like. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for your work.
I have a question, Chantel. Just with the city departments, what specifically, could you just talk a little bit more about the conversations and the work around?
It's actually been pretty great. I wanted to open up with a quote from Alex Ikufana, who's a Department of Development Services head. A lot of those conversations or interviews really have been open forum. We're aware that a lot of city departments don't really know what food access means. They don't know what food equity means. So we've been very open with how those interviews are structured, and it gives us a time to go back and forth on explaining what food equity, food justice is, what food access may look like for neighborhood development services. So some of the things that come out of those meetings, Alex, at the end of it, here's a quote from him. He said, "We need food to survive, and most importantly, access to food, quality and nutritious food is very critical for our lowest income residents." That's the aspect that Neighborhood Development Services believes that we need to take care of. That will include recognition of that need in the policies of the city comprehensive plan. We know that food was not mentioned at all in any chapter before, so now Neighborhood Development Services is actively aware of that. He wants to rewrite the zoning ordinances to accommodate the need and making it easier for people to have urban agriculture, also supporting protecting and preserving that space as redevelopment takes place. So that's just a snippet. There's also a couple of other, in the footnote, I try to be brief, but in the footnote of your, the memo, it also talks about economic development services increased awareness. So they've reached out, because of our meetings with the Food Equity Initiative, they reached out to Human Services and referred a funding opportunity through the Virginia Community Capital for Fresh Food Loan Fund, which seeks to support localities' pursuits of thoughtful food retail projects such as co-ops. In the city of Richmond, that was one of the loan things that they used to start the market on 25th. I don't know if you guys have seen anything about that. But the state of Virginia is also recognizing that food deserts, food access is an issue, and starting to create more pockets of money for that at the level. Sorry, does that answer your question?
And what about vending machines? Is there a vending machine? Like, is that part of the initiative or the conversation?
So we've had conversations with Human Resources for the city of Charlottesville. We're going through all those notes, but that is something that came up. That's something that we want to come from city departments, not from the collaborative ourselves. So some of those ideas around vending machines, also some ideas around like a food court and things like that for city staff. Human Services is more focused on how we can work within the city departments to make people know about all the benefits that are available through Aetna. Apparently you guys have a very robust Aetna program, and being able to drive those through. So it's more about communications for the Human Services department.
All right, thank you.
Mayor Walker, I have some questions. Thank you so much for this. And it does make me think that maybe this should have been a agenda item for council to look at as an update, because as I remember, our memo and when we passed it in October, we wanted to get updates. And so I really appreciate that you took the initiative to give us an update, even though we didn't put on the calendar. So if we could get more of these as you're ready and make sure that we can get it on a calendar, we could have more in-depth conversation. Because the next question I have is, do you foresee that you'll be developing a list of policy recommendations as well as public investments that we should be making?
Absolutely. We've already started to envision that, and when we say public ask, we really want to hone down that we're talking about cross-sectoral collaboration. So food access and transportation as an intersection, so it would be asked for the transportation department, food access and affordable housing. So there's different sectors that intersect with food access. Education is one of those. So we're trying to be as robust as possible. We do intend to just kind of write you guys a food chapter for the city comprehensive plan as well, because that stuff is we've already laid the groundwork for that. And definitely we can come and actually give a formal presentation as well.
Thank you. I would appreciate that, and just be teed up in time for budget discussions, which usually start in December, if there's anything that starts coming your way and that you think is an investment of some kind.
Okay. Thank you.
And the earlier the better. I mean, even in the summer, start bringing those things up to us.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
I'm Rosia Parker.
Good evening, all.
Good evening.
I just have a couple of things. I want to talk about the police on a summer day. Why do they feel that they have to over-police the black neighborhoods? I don't understand that. Two, I don't understand why some of these police officers are being promoted, and the things that I have seen aren't well with the agenda of the people, because the pictures that we've seen and the actions that I saw is very disturbing. Also, one of your lieutenants, we're trying to have transparency with the CRB, but we can't have transparency if the officer is still going off of something that was said or done months ago. So you can't have transparency in that, which plays also a part in trying to make the CRB go forward. Also, there was a gentleman, he was supposed to have been here with me tonight, but he didn't show up. But his name is Cyrus Tolliver, and he's a homeless veteran. And he wants to have an understanding, why did the two officers pass by him when he was on his knees, when the knife was to his throat? And he also, and this was on the downtown mall, he also wants to know, why haven't any charges been brought against this man? Why hasn't he been going to court? And also, the officers were supposed to let him know when the man had got out. The man had been out within maybe 3 days, and he was not in fear of his life, but the point of walking, around Charlottesville without knowing that this man was out. So he wants to know about that. Also, too, the light in the tunnel of 8th Street has not been done, and that's a very dangerous tunnel as you come through there. So we need lighting. And I'm still going to go back to 8th Street in Maine. If we can't get any lights until 6 months, can we at least get a reflector, which is already a reflector there, but it's dented up. You cannot see it with the silver reflection on both sides of the street. But I think that may be it. So I'm not going to give it to y'all too hard this evening. Thank you.
Or just like
So if we can have the light check. I think that was on the.
I'd just like to echo the comments, the latter part of the comments from Ms. Parker, once again, about the need for not only the reflector, but in my personal opinion, more that's needed on 8th and West Main. We've belabored this point a great deal, but I think we'll just have to continue saying it. I know we're supposed to discuss it in the upcoming agenda, but I want it to be known again, as prior councils have simply stated, that we need to change the streets. We can do the same on 8th and West Main, and I would like to see that done sooner than later. But I'll leave it there.
John Hall.
Thank you, Mayor Walker. Welcome, Dr. Richardson. City councilors. City Attorney John Blair, Keena Thomas, our clerk. I am John Edward Hall of the Fry Spring neighborhood here in Charlotte City, Virginia, I say. Charlotte, past Queen of England, who our city is named for, so honored yesterday. By public petition backing, I wish to direct our city planners and councilors to vote to include funds to lower the road at the intersection of 14th Street, West Main, and University Avenue 5 feet so that trucks can pass under the railroad overpass in that location. My initial thoughts were to suggest a $50,000 appropriation for the FY 2021 budget CIP cycle to do this. But today, I met with Tony Edwards, NDS manager, on the street, and he told me that the dangerous cast iron gas line correction will soon occur from JPA to follow West Main, and under this overpass that I'm talking about at 14th Street, West Main, and University Avenue, all the way to Rugby Road. Such gas line correction needs are also being implemented from the Sacagawea, Lewis and Clark Monument along West Main to JPA. Over this information, given this information, I suggest we as people of Charlotte City, Virginia, lower the road to fix the truck problem, address water lines and sewer pipes problems to alleviate flooding and ponding of water in heavy rains, and be proactive in bundling media cable in one fell swoop to best manage our public money, promoting efficiency and lean government spending. I'm in the process of approaching the CSX Railroad, who is the overpass and rail owner, for funding, the Corner Merchants Association for funding help, and we'll talk to area, construction, and engineering firms to further vet and refine my approach and civil engineering draft drawings. All that said, here are my drawings to share with the audience. One last drawing. See, this one right here prepared by me and Ron Cook as part of Public Works. Public Works who we honor today. It shows the area. I can talk more about it later.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mayor Walker, if I may ask a question of Dr. Richardson. So the very points that Mr. Hall has made about bundling utilities and replacing gas lines and sewer lines and water lines is all a major impetus as to why we even started looking at the West Main improvement plan. But my understanding is that that improvement plan ends right at the fork between JP Extended and then when it continues before it gets into and under that overpass, that train trestle. So it might be very timely to look at that particular solution or at least look at that particular problem, because we will be moving forward with those improvements, just as you say, because bundling all those utilities lets us declutter the sidewalks so that there's more people to walk, more space for people to walk. That if we could just at least talk to, I guess it would be NDS to see where we are at possibly coordinating these two solutions.
Definitely.
One that's underway and one that, might make sense.
Yeah, we take a look at it.
Because that is a serious clearance problem, and it causes an awful
Seen a
lot of
couple accidents.
congestion issues then as well.
All right. Cherry Henley?
Hi, I'm Sherry Henley, but I'm just gonna pass my time to Ange.
Okay. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Ange Khan, Charlottesville. Hi.
Good evening.
So I wanted to address something that I was unable to address last city council meeting due to time. I find it very interesting that we were able to just bypass the fact that there was a promotion of a police officer who was photographed with an actual white supremacist, and nobody has batted an eye. That's a problem for me, and many other people. I would like to have an investigation into his connection with white supremacy. I mean, it's on social media. You can use my phone. I'll give it to you for now. But there's a thread here along with the person who that particular officer, oops, I thought I was loud enough. Sorry. So there's an actual photo that's been on social media, and there's a thread along with that regarding the two individuals that this particular police officer is associated with online. You can scroll up if you want to get the information that you need. I find that it's a problem that with the police department saying they want to be transparent, they've neglected the fact that there is an actual photograph of this particular officer with white supremacists who are here and have been charged in the city of Charlottesville. So that's a problem. Another problem is the actual promotion, which I find, of the disregard, surrounding August 12th, August 11th, right? 2 separate days, very tragic incidents, right? And then for I'm not bashing anybody, but there's a lot of bashing that needs to be done. But I'm not going to do it today. I just want to make sure that there is an investigation that takes place regarding this particular police officer, and that personal friendships and camaraderie does not affect that investigation.
Oh, I locked everything.
Oh, Lord. I'll undo. I also think that that it was for the promotion to even go as far as it, to actual have a promotion of this person, knowing that these photos exist and those relationships are there, that he was still promoted. That's a problem. That's a very big problem in this community. And so I just wanted to address that.
What's your name again?
Ange Khan. You can find me on social media.
So, but if, it's probably better for you to give,
I'm not giving any photos to
no, not the
you
photos,
already
if
know.
you want direct communication.
Oh, yes, I
other
would
than
like
your-
an investigation. This is, how can you have an actual white supremacist standing next to you? Do you take photos with white supremacists on a regular basis? You know? Yeah, I mean, there's a whole thread there. I mean, come on. Like, you want to, if you want to right the wrongs in this community, you don't promote people who actually engaged in the suppression of our community. You don't do that. You don't do that. That's not what you do.
So at the end, the very long meeting that Paul Long just referenced, at the end of that, Jelaine Smith was still here to discuss this very issue. So at the end, we did discuss it with her, with the feedback that she gave, which is very similar to.
Because the majority of the community are like, why
Yeah.
has this white supremacist sympathizer been promoted in the police department?
Yeah.
Even if you don't agree with the policies of the police department, even if you don't agree with police surveillance, even if you don't believe in any of those things, or if you do, this was not the right move to show that you are here to support the community and oppressed people, marginalized individuals within our community. It's not the right way to do it. They're just, it's like every single time we give the benefit of the doubt, right? We take three steps backwards, right? Okay, well, a photo surfaced of this man, and now he gets a promotion 2 days later. Seriously? What are we doing here? What kind of progress are we making if we're gonna talk about progress? That's not progress.
Thank you. So we did have conversations, and I did express that the last meeting when it was brought up, also, and you've now talked to Dr. Richardson about it, so I'm assuming that we will get some feedback in between. All right. Katrina Turner.
Katrina Turner. First, I want to say that on May the 3rd, Miss Lolita Cookie Smith passed away. And usually when somebody passes away in the neighborhood that, we get a moment of silence at City Council, but we didn't get a moment of silence for Miss Cookie at City Council after she passed away. So I'd like to ask for a moment of silence for Miss Lolita Cookie Smith. Thank you.
Hold on for just a second. Ms. Thomas, can you restart the time?
Thank you. And I just have a message for Name Nichelle, that she wanted to tell me that she's very disappointed with City Council that not one person mentioned Miss Cookie's name and not one person came to her service. She just wanted me to mention that to you. And also, the officer that Ms. Dorinda Johnson just spoke about is the same officer I have been talking about for 3 years that I came forward to you about. He's one of the officers who assaulted my son, and now still 3 years later, he's out here and he's still harassing the black citizens out here. When are we gonna be heard? When is anything gonna be done with these officers out here? That's what I wanna know. This is one of the officers on my complaint that Ms. Johnson just complained about. And I'm still not finished complaining about him. And I want to share the rest of my time with Ms. Kayla. What's your last name? I am Kayla Washington. I am.
We just support her because she's doing that.
All right, so I'm Kayla. And I was a victim of an incident that happened to where Officer Pedro grabbed me by my arm. It was hard, like a rough grab. He manhandled me, and I was innocent. With that being said, I called the police, and the corresponding officer came. Instead of asking me what happened or, checking to see if I was okay, he instantly ran my name and everything like that. I went to file a complaint, and the same officer that came to the incident, he was basically telling me that there was nothing I could do because they're automatically going to take his side because he's a police officer. I ended up filing my complaint, and ever since then, every so often I get consistent letters from the police department saying that the investigation is still ongoing for 30 days. It's been a year, and I've gotten 7 letters saying 30 days. How many more 30 days is it going to take for something to be done?
Right. When did you get your last letter?
I got my last letter last month. I met with the Commonwealth Attorney Platano, y'all know who I'm talking about, and he agreed to where that it shouldn't have taken this long. I first met with Lieutenant Sandridge, and then I understand she had her health concerns, and then someone else picked it up, but still here I am a year later, have yet to hear back from Internal Affairs in regards to the situation. But if this had happened to a Caucasian female, it would have gotten solved right then and there.
And your, what was the date of your incident?
This happened a year ago, like the end of May.
Last
year.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So can we get an update? All right, Elliot Harding.
Elliot Harding, live in the city. I know that she just recognized the passing of Miss Smith. I want to recognize somebody who did something. He's still with us, and thankfully he's coming back to us. That's an ambassador from the city of Charlottesville, who's been a real prominent figure in the United States, using his platform for educational equity and early education literacy and access, bringing clean water to East Africa and Tanzania, and fighting for criminal justice reform. And he announced his retirement 2 days ago, and that is Chris Long. Chris Long is a Charlottesville something that we sent out into the world, and now he's coming back to us. And I think that that's something that we should recognize here in the city as something positive, and recognize people that, are an ambassador of the city of Charlottesville and what we stand for, to take it at a national platform. For me, he was always an inspiration. I've known him since I was 12 years old. I was friends with his younger brothers, and to me, he was like an older brother. And I'm going to talk a little bit about his football career, but then about his humanitarian career, because that's what he's bringing back to the city as a resident. At St. Anne's Belfield, he wasn't just recognized as being a talent, but he was recognized for his work ethic, his leadership, and being a strong teammate. So much so that he led my alma mater to an undefeated state championship. And in 2008, they created the Chris Long Award for the football program, who went to pretty strong football alumni themselves. In UVA, he chose to go there where he could have gone elsewhere. He could have gone to Ohio State, LSU, plenty of other large programs in the U.S., but he decided to stay home. And there he served as an inspiration for all of Central Virginia young men and young women, athletes all around Virginia, with a positive work ethic and a positive attitude. He became a first-team unanimous All-American, won the Hendricks Award for the best defensive end in the country, finished 10th in the Heisman voting as a defensive player, and then he became the number 2 overall draft pick in 2008. Played for 8 years in St. Louis, where he worked with not just his teammates, but off the field to try to draw attention to homelessness in St. Louis, to criminal justice reform issues in St. Louis. And then ultimately, he joined the Patriots in 2016, won a Super Bowl, 2017, won a Super Bowl, donated his entire salary to funding scholarship and early education access for education. And then in 2018 became the Walter Payton Man of the Year for his humanitarian efforts off the field. And 2 days ago, he announced his retirement. And so what is the Philadelphia and Boston and St. Louis, what's the NFL's loss is Charlottesville's gain, and that we get somebody who's strong and positive, and somebody that I think all of the local community can be happy to see return. And I just want to, draw some positive comments to somebody from our backyard. Thanks.
Thank you. So we have John, and I'm not, I can't, the last name is not clear at all. No? All right. Caleb Evan.
Bless you.
Thank you, Mayor Walker. Greetings, council members, and as well to Dr. Richardson. Today, I would like to bring forth an issue that's a bit of a confusing conundrum within our police department, or at least police departments in general. Within the city of Charlottesville, there's no legal definition of misconduct, and although officers can be fired for misconduct, the misconduct won't show up on like the information given to their next employer, and this can be a very large problem for officers getting fired for misconduct in one district, moving to another. They don't lose their certification for getting fired for misconduct, so they can continue their service as a police officer with their same certification. I think that it would be beneficial for the council to work with the CRB and the police department to enact a citywide definition for misconduct, and to make it so that officers do not, well, it could be and or, but I would like to suggest that it be made a decertifying punishment for getting fired for misconduct. It's the kind of thing that really erodes trust of our police department, and I think after what we saw in 2017, there is not a growing there was not a very large sentiment in favor of police department with respect to trust. And I think as we see with the amount of people that have come before you today with concerns about police, I think that this issue is certainly serious, and I think this could be one step to amending that. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Kelly.
Hi, I'm Mike Kelly. I'm a property owner on West South Street. I actually came here to voice my disapproval of the plan to put a trolley stop on our street, but you guys have already made that decision, it seems. So I'd like to talk about the process. I think there's a pretense here that the residents on our street were notified that this was going to happen. I don't think any of my neighbors, the few that are here, there was no 14-day notice, and there was no mailing, no nothing. There's been no opportunity to voice public comment on this, and you guys have already made up your mind, and I wonder what happens after the 6-month pilot program, whether you just make up your mind again, and what's the process? How do you decide where these things go? Does anybody that wants a trolley stop in their front yard, do they get one? Is there a process for determining this? And why don't we get a voice to an opportunity to speak against it?
Because you didn't come to me, council meeting.
We aren't notified.
Ms. Carey.
It's been going on for months.
Ms. Carey.
Where you been?
Generally, when something is intrusive, that this happens, there's a notification that goes out. It happens with all the building, any building development, there's a notification process that goes out. It has not happened.
So can you talk to, well, I would like to know just how your property specifically is impacted by that.
I don't know yet. I don't know what you all are doing. Nobody knows. You can. No, I don't think a lot of the residents. Does she have the floor?
So we've had, every conversation about this has been public. When the matter was brought to our attention, it was brought to our attention publicly.
Where do I have to go to find the? Do I have to read the minutes of the city council? I mean, normally other processes, you guys send out letters when something like this is going to affect a street or a neighborhood. You send out a letter.
So that's what I'm asking, so that they can take note of how do you think this is going to impact you negatively?
I don't. We could lose. We have seven permitted parking spaces on our street. We lose 3 of them. We know we lose almost 50% of our parking.
But you're not losing 3 parking spaces.
We don't know. How do we? Well,
because we already
attended.
have
We
said
attended a meeting this week, and they said that it could likely lose. We could lose 3 spots on South Street, and we may lose several on 2nd Street as well. Permitted.
So we just had a discussion about 2 parking spaces.
Again, what's the process? Why don't we know what you're doing? We don't know.
So again, every discussion about this has been public, so we haven't had.
Well, I guess I got to come to all the city council meetings and to find out about this.
I would say that when we
you had reservations about the process yourself.
I do.
You sat here and you said to yourself, I'm sorry, sure.
So no, his time is over, so you have to wait.
What's that? Can I defer to her?
No, your time, we're just asking.
Okay, well, you had reservations yourself about the process. You voiced them, and so obviously something is.
I agree. I think we need to be consistent, and when we have zoning changes or anything's notified, there is a mailing that goes out, and it was my understanding, based on feedback we were getting from both residents and business owners, that there was not that notification. Yes, there are people who come to these meetings and were aware of this happening, but I mean, I think it's unfair for us to assume that everyone is watching every council meeting and reading the minutes. I think
agree.
that there's a notification period.
Well, that's not what I was assuming. I'm just saying we were not having private meetings. There was
No, I'm not saying that.
There was a statement about transparency, and we have had open conversations about the topics.
Sure.
All right, no, not right now. Okay.
I guess my time is done.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Walker, may I say something?
Uh-huh.
It is clearly the case that when there are any changes to anyone's property, private property, that there are notifications. And there are notifications of the area. But this is, may I please continue what I'm going to say? This, however, is a public right-of-way. And it is something that is related to what the city uses to use its public transportation on. We had changes of routes in the past, and individual property owners were not notified of the changes. There were public discussions about the changes of the routes. So this is a public right-of-way with a public bus system, and it is a pilot to test out whether this change will benefit the residents of Midway Manor, which is a senior citizen facility. It's also going to look at what are the implications for parking. So that is what the point of the pilot is. What my understanding is that before the pilot begins, these notifications will take place, and there will be ample opportunity for people to have the conversations to understand impacts. But that said, this is a public right-of-way. And we are going to be doing everything we can to make this a transparent process. The process is to understand how we can have a win-win situation for the residents and of the entire area, not only individual properties. So that's my understanding of this process, and that's how we've discussed it in public meetings in the past. And just underscore, Dr. Richardson, please just make sure everybody that's impacted is invited to these public meetings, these engagement sessions about how the pilot's going to be implemented, what it's going to study, and then when it gets down to the point where we're going to have the end of the pilot, what is the next step there? This is how as far as I know, this is the only way you can understand how to solve a problem.
Thank you. I'll also take a look at the mailings and see if the information was mailed out.
Okay, thank you. I mean, that definitely would be helpful.
All right. Thank you. All right, we have 2 additional slots. Is there anyone who would like to speak? That's it. Okay, so maybe that's the one that I couldn't. Okay. All right. He's gonna come. You can come up after.
Thank you.
To the bill.
Thank you.
You didn't attend Armstrong or Walker, did you?
No.
That's fortunate for you.
Rich.
Mainly, I'm here tonight to follow up from my visit earlier in the month. I mentioned to you that some of our petitions had not come in, and today I received petitions from one of the individuals that was solicited them over in the West Haven neighborhood. So both of these pages are signed from residents of West Haven. However, since I'm here and I still have a few minutes, Charlottesville's in turmoil. One, this morning I received a call from Waste Management. And it was at a time when I was trying to figure out how I'm going to pay these high taxes that are due in June. So maybe part of this conversation was due to my feelings related to that. However, it appears to me that there are a number of city workers that think they don't work for their citizens. There's a way that you can certainly be malleable in talking with residents. And I didn't feel that that occurred this morning with my conversation with the Waste Management. He pointed out that the hole in the street was coming from my housing as it related to waste management, and that the repair would be on me as a resident to take care of, which is, if that's the way it is, that's the way it is. However, he also pointed out to me that other residents have been asked to pay this fee for repair, and maybe they have, which is no big deal with me. You know, we all are being asked to do things, but I didn't see where he needed to bring that to my attention. So I guess really what I'm saying, My time is up. Go ahead. There are so many employees with the city that are quite malleable and considerate, but then there are others that you heard from this evening that are not. Then I read in the paper, or I heard on the radio, and maybe I didn't hear it correctly, that one of the candidates for city office is saying that we could be bussed in to work and we wouldn't have to have so much housing constructed. But maybe I didn't get that correct. Then we talk about parking. I have friends that live up close to Rugby Avenue, and the university employees are taking away the parking, and they can't even park in front of their residence. And not lastly, but since I'm here, are slot machines legal in the city? Or do we have to go to Atlantic City or MGM in Washington to participate?
They are not, slot machines themselves are not legal in the city.
Maybe these aren't slot machines. And lastly, we were, recognizing by a minute of silence many of the residents of the city that have passed on. And I'd just like to mention two names that have not been mentioned. One being Mrs. Roberts, who worked for the police department for a number of years. And secondly, Norman Goins, who worked at Martha Jefferson Hospital for a number of years and was a waiter in the city of Charlottesville during the time that he lived. So those are just some of the concerns I wanted to raise. And I heard the city manager mentioning responding to problems that were brought before council at the last meeting, but I didn't hear him mention anything as related to the request for the signal lights at 10th and Page and 8th and Main. I hope it will not take 10 years as it took us to get sidewalks over on Albemarle Street. Thank you very kindly.
So we, Mr. Gaines, we asked the engineers to look at those and get back with us. So that's what we're waiting for. And so hopefully it would be within the next meeting or two.
Yeah, we should have it back by the next meeting. We talked about it earlier, but we didn't get a chance to get to it. So we should have it back by the next meeting. If not, I'll let the council know as well as the public.
Oh, thank you. And last, there are 3 murders that have occurred in Charlottesville over the past 15 or 20 years, all of them being African Americans. One being a gentleman that was murdered down near Lane High School. A second one being a gentleman that walked the tracks from the university to Ivy. He worked at the White Spot. And there's been the third one over in the Prospect area. And haven't heard anything related to the follow-up or any follow-up relating to that, but maybe something is being looked into as it relates to it. Thank you very kindly for your time.
Thank you.
I'm Joan Fenton. I wanted to comment on the bus route and the process. Going back historically, when the mall crossing came in, purposely the 2 streets went in different directions on 2nd Street because there was a fear of through traffic coming through and there being fast traffic going across the mall. The biggest concern was public safety, and my biggest concern is the bus crossing Water Street is going to be a problem. I don't believe you've had an adequate traffic study to look at the impact of the bus changing in terms of delaying traffic on South Street, the crossing of the mall, whether you need to have a lit crosswalk there. There used to be lit crosswalks all across the mall. We have one that doesn't function, not across the mall, but across Water Street. But if you're going to have a bus there, you need to do something to make that be a safer intersection. Council appointed a parking committee a year ago. I'm on that committee. We were never notified of any of this or other changes that were going to happen to parking downtown, and I think anything like that should go through that committee, or what's the point of the committee? Nobody has done an adequate study of the impact of the bus on traffic. So prior to doing this, I would time how long it takes the bus to get to the intersection, how long it's going to take to go on South Street. I would look at, nobody's looked at traffic on South Street on Saturday during market and what is the impact. Nobody's looked at the impact at 5 o'clock during rush hour. Nobody's looked at what is going to be the difference of trying to get into the parking lot on 2nd Street. So all of those issues have never been addressed. It's not that the bus is a bad or a good idea, but you have not done due diligence, and doing a 6-month experiment to find out whether or not this might work seems to be really foolhardy. This should be done in the proper process of figuring out, does this really work? It's not simply an experiment for 6 months. And you have a flawed process of, I can ask for a parking spot anywhere in the city. And if nobody reads the notice, I get it churned into a 15-minute spot or a loading zone or whatever. And I think going forward, you need to look at the process of everybody in that neighborhood should get written notification, so that you don't wake up one morning and find out that your spot where you parked every day in front of your house is no longer available to you because somebody else wanted it for a loading zone. And there's businesses that do that, there's residential areas that do that, and I think, again, the parking committee should be looking at an overall process on how decisions are made about parking. So what I'm saying is this system is flawed. And also, those residents were told, you should have been out there and read this sign that's posted. And if you've ever looked at downtown and the number of signs that are posted on a street, every week we get the no parking, this is happening, that's happening. None of them knew. So when you say they had 14 days to respond, they were also told they would have a meeting with city staff and then have time to respond. And instead, that meeting with city staff happened outside the 14-day window, so they're told, tough noogies, you're too late. And those are my comments, and welcome.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, if I may, about an earlier question, been researching. They're actually, when talking about law enforcement officers, the State Department of Criminal Justice Services is responsible for certification and decertification of law enforcement officers. And there's actually a state code provision, 15.2-1707, that details there like 6 specific things that an officer does that the chief of police is required to notify DCJS of one of these 6 occurrences, and then there's a decertification process conducted by the State Department of Criminal Justice Services.
Thank you. Hold on just a second, please. What'd you say? I thought. So I'm assuming you took those notes.
I got it.
And and we'll look at those over the time frame of the pilot.
That's it.
I'd just like to add, the very things that have been brought up are the very things that are going to be studied in a pilot.
Yeah.
That is what I don't, the only way you can understand a traffic pattern change is to test it out. So I think certainly the bringing up the parking committee, that they need to be certainly included in this pilot. And certainly all the engineers and all the traffic analysis and before and after, so we can understand the benefits and the costs of this change. That's what the pilot was intended to do.
All right. And so.
I like that.
Thank you. You can come on up. I think this is, I'd said 2 more spots, but we actually were at our last spot because I hadn't had, but go ahead. Huh?
No.
Go ahead, yeah.
Mayor,
Yeah.
Theodore Johnson, a lifelong member of the neighborhood. I grew up in Gary Street. I stayed there from 48 until 1970. Then I moved to Grady Avenue. I was married, and I moved uptown. I'm located now at 305 10th Street, Northwest, City of Charlottesville. Now, I have 3 parking spots in front of my house, but I can't park there because the university people take them. I have a back alley that I can open my gate up, and I can park in my backyard. I can tell my daughter, come around the back, I can let you in the back because they can't park in front of my house. I've been down here to the city on the 2nd floor down here, talked to somebody last year, and I said I would have to buy a permit to park. I was told because I've been raised from sand, I ain't gonna say what's on my mind. They park in front of my door, they'll park on a Friday, and they'll come back on a Sunday night. But I can't say anything because they say they have a sticker on the cars. All right, I've been there 5 years. I can't park in UVA 3 or 4 times, but they can park, and they find the black neighborhoods to target. Even the people that work there in the morning time at university, because they have to pay university to park, they'll come down 10th Street, 11th Street, 10.5 Street, and pull right in there and park, because they have that sticker so they can park there. Only street they can't park if you have if you're handicapped. They see that handicap. And that's not right to us who pay rent and citizens. Also, I have a sister right here. I'm not going to be on the police department, but I got it. I was going to talk to her about it. I was sick on the 31st of March, and I came from the hospital, and I was laying down. And this was a black person. He came to my door, and I was laying down Sunday. Didn't even go to church. And I heard some knocking at my door and opened the door. So he said, my girlfriend in your house. I said, no girlfriend here, man. So he tried to push by me, but I pushed him back and I pulled my door together. He stood on the porch. He said, he's coming in. I said, I would advise you not. I'd gotten out a little rough then. You're not going to come in my door if I tell you not. So I called the police, and they came. He wrote it. This is his name right here. And I asked, I gave it to him. I said, give me some information. He took all my chairs off my porch, and he threw them in the yard.
What? Who did that?
The person. His name right here, I got it wrote down.
The police.
No, the police. Carl Lee Thomas. So the police knew who he was because he went next door. And at the time I put on some clothes, and I said, he went next door. So the police said, are you sure you saw him? I said, I'm standing right here looking. Yes, I seen him. I said, I don't want to get myself back in no trouble. He was intimidating me by kept on asking me, did you see him? Did you see him? Did you see him? 2 of the chairs got broke off the porch because he slammed them. They were chairs. So he insisted, he said, well, you got to go to the magistrate office. I said, I got to go to the magistrate office. He's sitting right there. Why can't you arrest him right here and take my word for it? He said, we can't do that. We can't do it. You'll have to go. Now, I can remember when, right on Water Street, the magistrate office was right there. Because I was getting in trouble too by drunk in public. They used to come, the magistrate office used to be right there behind the hardware store. You'd go in there, that was the city of Charlottesville. I don't know where this new thing came, not y'all, but somebody changed it with Alma, city of Charlottesville in the county of Alma. Once we crossed that bridge that bottom there, going up the hill, we're in Alma County. We need a magistrate office right back here. At nighttime, the police department, 10 o'clock or so, they locked up. You can't get in there to get nobody. And they've had 24 hours all night long. Something wrong with this picture. So 30 years ago, I would say 30, because I'm 70 now. All right, 30 years ago, we were young people then. we are the older generation now. And so I feel that something should be done. The police department, you could have a magistrate office right here in the city of Charlottesville. Because not only me, there are a lot of older people, older than me, and maybe younger than me, that do not have transportation to get to the magistrate office. The police don't take us anywhere. Now, we used to call, go down there if they was arrested on Water Street, the magistrate would be there, they would take us to the complex. She would call, they would bring us back. Then we would sign ourselves out, we were back in town. But now you have to walk. They take you, if they take you out there at 10 o'clock, they don't let you out till maybe 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the morning. It's pitch black dark. There's no sidewalks. You're walking in the middle of the street. And I used to take my belt and walk like this, because they have the dogs and everything is loose. You can get hit. That's one thing you need to look into. I don't see why we can't. We pay taxes. I don't see why we can't have a magistrate office right back in the city.
So we'll have that looked at. Okay.
So that was my concern. I'm not being smart, but I've been sitting there listening to that. People want it. I'm going to say it because I am the oldest one that lived on the Garrett Street. I heard a lot of stuff about, I know all the areas in Garrett Street because I was one of the three. And the neighborhood association, all that came from the Garrett Street. And I hear you always talk about Brinker Hill. I was waiting for you to hit Garrett Street. I was waiting for you to see what they're going to say about Garrett Street.
Thank you.
But thank you.
Okay.
Thank y'all for your time.
Okay, thank you. All right,
So, Mayor Walker, I'm sorry, just really briefly, I am perplexed. Thank you for your comments. One of the things I am confused about, because we've heard this for a great deal, I'm not quite sure how it works. So how can the employees at UVA get stickers to park in the community? And especially as he just described, leaving their car there on Friday and I don't have to come and pick it up until Sunday. I'm like, Dr. Richardson, I don't know if that's something we can look into, or I just don't understand the guidelines of how they're allowed to use
when
it.
I was talking to families over in the area, I don't think they have passes. They are just parking, and they are leaving the cars over, and that issue is happening on that side of town and over in the Forest Hills,
Right.
Forest Ridge, Prospect, that area.
So then can they have the vehicles towed?
Only if there's a permitted street. If it's not permitted street, it's open to anyone. So the street has to agree, everyone on the street has to agree to have permitted parking, and then those residents get a permit where they can park and guarantee it, and it will prevent others.
So then you have to file a permit.
I understand, I'm just telling you that is the situation we're in, because we hear about this a lot from Fifeville as well.
So I wonder, so to that point, hold on, may I? So to that point, one of the things I would be
looking at it.
Yeah, I would be interested in agenda item for us to look at the process of permitting streets, and then if we could use resources from the equity fund to purchase the permits for those who live on the street, so that the residents can then prohibit those who,
Or even
as
in
we
that
just saw,
instance, it may be something where we just waive
the fees. Yeah, I mean, I think there's ways in which we can protect these citizens.
I think Mr.
If I may,
Duncan wants
Mayor
to-
Walker, please. That this area has undertaken a study for permit parking already. And I think the stumbling block has always been the permit fee. But there has been already on the books, and I believe it's an NDS, there has been the study, the data has been collected.
Okay.
So I think we should look into that. But I think it also is, as a matter of policy, as to whether or not we will waive the parking fee, or if we've had an ongoing challenge with the University of Virginia and employee parking. We've talked about this as part of the working group solution of having payment in lieu of taxes with UVA. There could be some arrangement worked out where they pay for the permit fee.
Yeah.
Because if that's, that way we have permitted parking, but we're getting the resources where we should get it from, which is the source of the tension.
Well, see, I don't think the fee, more or less, is the larger issue, because I do think, we're the policymakers. Yeah, we
in
can
terms of
waive-
revenue for the city.
Right, we can waive the fee. I think the revenue in terms of the city from the parking fees or the permit fee is minuscule.
She's
But I think
saying
that-
for UVA to be responsible for it.
Understood, but from my perspective, I think that UVA, whether the employees, whether it's the students, whomever, they'll find a way to get around the paying the parking fees or having to get the permit in some regards. I think that we need to look at, and I would like to have an agenda item in which we look at permitting the streets and empower the residents to tow. I'll call the tow trucks on those who park.
Well, if
We're
you're,
not
if
in
it's,
disagreement.
yeah,
Yeah,
if it's,
no, I agree. I'm just saying, I would like to have.
I would
that
just
on
like
the
to get
upcoming agenda.
revenue
but
from
if it's a
the
permitted,
university.
yeah, if it's a permitted street, they can't, UVA employees or students can't just park there. They have to have the card. What the other stumbling block, which has happened for some residents, is some people really advocate for having permitted parking on the street, even if the fees were waived, but some other residents don't want to have it. And so there is a lot of restrictions around how many residents have to agree for that permitted street, because some people find it inconvenient that when anytime a guest comes over, they have to, find like their guest pass and they have to give it to the person coming. So there's some people who are not in support of that, and so it's done on a street-by-street basis.
And that was done. We have that information.
Right.
I still would like for it to
So
be
we
on
can
the
look,
upcoming
if
agenda.
we can look up the records and see what those streets were. I don't think I'm imagining this, but the problem was the fee itself.
Agreed. Thank you.
Okay.
So I don't think, so Mr. Gathers, no, I don't think anyone's saying that none of us up here are saying that we would want, so Mr. Gathers. Understood. So what, so Mr.
Okay.
Gathers, Mr. Gathers.
All right.
Mr. Gathers.
So meeting adjourned, we're gonna take a break until 8:50. Thank you.